Well, hello everybody. How are we all doing today? Leo here, for those of you who may not know. And today I am in Matewan, West Virginia, and been staying here at the historic Matewan Bed and Breakfast, a good friend David Hatfield's place. And I wanted to show you guys something today while I was up here. I happened to run into something last night that I wanted to show you guys. I was out doing some video, just at nighttime, bustling, big lights, big city, Matewan, West Virginia, big city lights. Anyway, I happened to run into, it was an artist. I believe he said he was a grad student, if I'm not mistaken. And he was doing some pictures and stuff for the museum. So, you know how I am. I'm going to go say hi. Got to talking to the guy, and they are in the middle of something really cool that I think you guys will find very interesting. Some of you may be familiar with the Matewan massacre, which, we've done videos about it. The Matewan massacre occurred right there on that very corner right there. But the museum right here, this is the Mine Wars Museum, directly across the street right here. And they have been working on something that I think you guys may find very interesting. They are right in the middle of a dig at a historical location, and they're trying to uncover new historical information. And I mean, that's right up my alley, new historical information. Duh. That's what we do. So yeah, I would love to come over if you guys have a few minutes and kind of show us what you found, what you're up to, what you're doing, that kind of thing. That should be very interesting. But anyway, I guess without further ado, let's just go get to it, huh? Just thought I'd show you a little bit of the stuff out front. $5. That's not bad for a museum. A very interesting museum at that. All right, we're going to walk on in and see what's going on. The train. Now this used to be the bank here in Matewan. This was the bank of Matewan for years, and they shut down. How we doing?
Welcome.
How we doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Y'all busy?
We're not. No, come on in.
Well, good.
Well, I mean, a little bit, but...
Good. Glad to hear it. I hear y'all been working up Paint Creek a little bit.
We have. They're up there right now, actually. Have you met our researcher much?
No, I have not.
We need to get you in touch with him. He'll be gone in September.
Really?
But he's from Huntington, but then he went to George Washington. Learn how to do all this stuff.
Really?
He's been going out with Kenny King to Blair and working stuff.
Yeah. How you doing, by the way? I remember I came by one time with...
Yeah, absolutely. You brought a few groups in, I think, since I've been around.
Yeah, a couple. So how's everything going?
It's been a pretty busy year. I think we're maybe on the other side of trail season at its height, at least till fall.
Fall, yeah.
And then more people come in again. But a lot of growth over the last year and a half. We're buying this building. A lot of our time lately has been ate up putting a community center in.
Upstairs?
Yeah, getting ready to do a bunch of archiving events.
Really?
Matewan, Williamson, Welch, Logan, Charleston. Did I miss one? Candace?
I don't think so.
But people will just bring in their pictures and we'll take a picture of them. We're not keeping anything from here necessarily unless somebody really insists on it. It's just more of bring what you've got and we want to archive it digitally so we can share it.
Yeah, that's cool. That is cool that you're all doing that stuff.
He's done a little bit of preliminary work out at Lick Creek too.
Have you?
Yeah, he's been out there some, scouting out a few places. He's done a bunch of research on the tent colonies here in Matewan. He said there were 7 or 8 at one point.
Right, I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. And he's working up Lick Creek a little bit.
He's been out there some. I don't think he's got like a property owner where he can dig or anything out there. But Paint Creek and Cabin Creek, he's been able to find somebody to actually let him go out there and do a dig. So.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to figure out exactly where it was out there too.
Yeah.
Because so much of it has changed, and I think it used to be the old mail route. You could go across there, and you came out right across from Regional Church of God in Delbar.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look on a map, and you can see where it. But somebody said it was the old mail route, but we think that maybe the mouth of Lick Creek has changed a lot, and then the county had put that, or Williamson put that dump in.
Right.
At the mouth.
Yeah.
I don't think that's where the tent colony was. And then part of it is we've even wondered if there may be a little further down the hill.
Yeah.
Versus where Route 49 is today. They might have been down a little
Yeah,
ways or
that's
something.
yeah.
Closer
Yeah.
to the tracks.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does
Then,
make sense.
One of the things he uncovered was where the train yard is. It was originally set to be like a whole little coal camp of its own. Don't quote me on it for sure. I think it might have been Bronson, West Virginia. And it would have been just a little community right there where the whole train, they had it plotted out into, tiny little plots and everything.
I guess. Oh, just for the record, everybody, this Tom, right?
Yeah.
Thomas. I know it's all the tag. Thomas.
Yeah, the guy's name tags look a little more official.
But I met last night your photographer, the art student. That was talking last night, and he was telling me about you guys were doing some of that stuff, and I thought we'd come over and kind of look around a little bit, and
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if we can show you a bunch about what they're doing up there necessarily, but there are a bunch of new things at the museum
really
that we could show you around too. One of our big improvements is our window exhibit. We just did a major upgrade on that, probably since last time you've been over.
Cool.
Hey, how's it going?
I believe it's come there. 401.
That's us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we actually have, from the Matewan movie, Chris Cooper is doing the narration on the new window exhibit, and then West Virginia Music Hall of Famer John Ellison is doing some singing in the background, and then Frank Kenny's grandson Chuck and I are both playing a little guitar.
Really?
So yeah, we'll make sure you get to check that out. That's
go ahead.
The newest improvement
Let's
to the
see.
museum.
Now I've brought you guys here. We've shown you a lot of this. I'll link the older video, the other one, where we covered a lot of the other exhibits.
But yeah, this improvement happened just before Heritage Day on the anniversary of the Battle of Matewan. It's a lot more clear demonstration of who was involved, who was wounded, who were the people that stood on trial, and then their audio is probably the really big improvement to some of this as well.
They said the Great
That's
War
cool.
was going to make the world
And then we really
safe
wanted to be able to place you inside like the space, so we pointed out the dry cleaners where the NW railway line would have ran. And then if you look down here on the display, it's even pretty easy to. We're here in the old Matewan National Bank. Well, actually the new modern Matewan National Bank. The original is across the street here. And what is today the Chit and Chat coffee shop on the back side there is where the shootout all took place.
And the rule of the gun thugs.
That is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Got a good layout of it.
And you can see some of the scenes from the tent camps there. It's kind of what we were referring to before out at Lick Creek or North Matewan.
Yeah.
The coal companies
Yeah.
tried to
Now that's interesting. The depot then. So the depot would have been
chief of police.
right over there. Okay, I was kind of curious about that.
There's a great photograph over here.
That's what I was.
Yeah. If you can get out of the glare here, you can see the depot there.
Yeah, right here.
Now, another really interesting detail is this building here.
Uh-huh.
This has to be close to the time of the shootout, but I want to say it may be a few years afterwards because there's reportedly an alleyway here, and part of this building I think was bricked into the other side there at one point.
Cover.
Yep.
Okay, kind of fill in. It's amazing though that the town is still standing in it. Just the fact that it's all still here is.
It really is.
After all these years, it's still here. Now that and Sid, old smiling Sid, my buddy. It's an amazing place y'all got here.
Really?
It really is. I mean, a lot of people underestimate the impact that the mine wars and the events that followed had on the country and the world. You know, it's understated.
It's definitely a big one, and I mean, the mine wars didn't happen in a vacuum. This was kind of playing out everywhere in the country, whether you were in a mill or you were in a factory or if you were in the mines. It just the change over to industrialization was not a pretty thing to have happen, and you're really at ground zero for a lot of it here in Matewan, where everything comes to a head. And we don't see the change happen until federal legislation comes, a decade later.
Right.
But it really, if you trace it all back, it kind of comes back to a lot of the events that play out in the lead up to Blair Mountain, including the shootout here in Matewan.
Yeah. My mom was a Blair.
Oh, wow.
I'm related to Hatfields and McCoys, and mom was a Blair. Have you ever been up to the Ellis and Hatfield Cemetery?
I've not.
If you go up to it, if you go by trail, for instance, you can come up by road too, but if you go up by trail, you'll come up to a bench, a wooden bench in the middle of nowhere, just sitting by the side of a trail. Just middle of nowhere, a wooden bench. Pull over there and park and go over the hill, and that's where Ellis and Hatfield is buried at. But when you first start down the hill, if you look to your right, you'll see a bunch of Blairs, and that's some of Mom's family right there in that same graveyard.
You know, there's not a lot at Blair Mountain modern day at all. Like, there's not. It seems like people just slowly moved off. As something I didn't realize is like almost all the roadways end up going through the opposite end of Logan. And you end up with a lot of local people even say, well, where's Blair Mountain at?
Yeah.
Because if you're not going there on purpose,
if you
really
don't have a
wouldn't end up
reason
there.
to be there, you're not going to wind up there by accident might get you there.
So another thing I always like to share with people is a little bit about how town has changed. Like if we come to this picture, so if you study just the mine wars and then you visit Matewan in the modern day, you miss out on a lot of how town may have been set up at the time. So in 1923, just a few years after the shootout, you end up with an underpass that goes in on the far end of town.
Right, I remember that.
And you end up with two-way traffic all the way until 1995 here in Matewan.
Right.
So if you visit modern day, it really resembles a lot more of what you would have seen in the time of the mine wars.
Right.
I think some of that was also efforts by the town back in the 80s of once the movie came out to restore some of the historic appearance. But yeah, that's a really interesting thing to keep in mind. And the UMWA local here, they're still real active. Most are retired, but they work a ton in the community. They've got a little Stone Mountain coal mine there. So if you get a chance to come to Matewan, you'll have to check out that little display that they built down there too.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, Matewan of the 1980s would have been a very different place though, with probably 10-wheeler coal trucks passing through all day long.
Yeah, it was.
Unintentionally, it's really set Matewan up to be a great tourist destination for people coming to visit this. Even though it may have hurt the town a little bit, I always say whenever that initially happened.
Yeah. Well, it's become, a tourist town, over the years. Trail riders and people coming for the historic aspect and, to hear all the old stories and stuff. And there he is. There's our photographer. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
So did you get everything last night? Did you get all your...
I think so. I got what I want, and then I'm going to do stuff in here today. Yeah.
Well, cool. Very much nice meeting you, man.
Yeah,
very much pleasure meeting you. So did you have anything else you wanted to show us today?
I think that's the big improvement. A lot of our other improvements are really, we bought this building from the UMWA local who invited us to...
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. It's been a lot of work, but it's really exciting too. Right now we're working on, some relationships with people to possibly get into the backside of it. We've got this huge community center. We've been doing some book readings, and we're hoping to do some concerts over the next year. So
really,
a little bit of everything. We're hoping it can bring people into the area, but then also if you're a local here from Matewan, it's something you can come out and enjoy.
Exactly.
So just keep an eye on all of our social media and that sort of thing, and we put out plenty of announcements for all that. Hopefully, if you haven't got a chance yet, you'll get a chance to come and visit us.
I plan to. When y'all get that Cabin Creek stuff done too, I'd love to come up and see what you found.
Yeah, if you want to get a chance to, anybody out there listening, if you wanted to get involved, we'll be doing community archiving days across southern West Virginia throughout early August and even up into the first part of September. That'd be a chance for you to bring out your family's artifacts. We will digitize them for you, give them back to you so that you get to, keep your items. And then we're going to share them in our print journal. Some of the more interesting things that come in.
That's a really good idea. Yeah. That's a really good idea.
So just hoping to get more and more people involved locally, or even people who've been connected to the area at one point and
moved away
about their family history.
Yeah, we get that a lot. My grandmother's buried at such and such, and never seen her grave and things like that. We get that a lot. People move away, and we get a lot of those. But it really is amazing how much history is per square foot.
In Matewan, yeah.
I mentioned yesterday I could probably walk this street and about every 3 or 4 steps I could tell you a story if I really wanted to.
For sure. Yeah, there's so much. Chuck Keeney, Frank Keeney's grandson, throughout the Paint Creek and Cabin Creek strikes all the way up through the end of the Matewan conflict and into Blair. He does some walking tours, and it's just amazing some of the things I've learned from him. I'd love to be on one of yours as well sometime.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. Sounds great. So what are you doing now? What's your position? I mean,
So I am the museum and communications manager. So most days I'm who you'll encounter if you come in the museum. My name's Tom, and I'm from the next town over, and we just try to make sure anybody that visits has a really good time and experiences, the authentic Southern West Virginia, but also learns a lot of this history that may not be something as many people know about.
right. Well, I've mentioned many times in videos the significance of the Matewan massacre and the Blair Mountain. You can't really overstate it, because it was such a significant event. It changed the world.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you get into like the 30s and the federal legislation coming out of the Great Depression, all that very much starts with a lot of the conflict happening in Southern West Virginia.
Ground zero, right, literally out that window. Ground zero for the middle class. Wow.
Sure. Your 40-hour work week, a lot of these things that we really take for
you
granted.
get paid in cash and not script.
Right here.
Back in the day, there was a thing your boss could fire you for any reason he popped out. That one whisker right there is that much longer than the other ones, and I don't like that. You're fired. And you would have to live with that. You'd have to, you just got to live with it. You had no recourse. And
Absolutely.
so,
And I mean, if you lose your job in a place like this because you're paid in script, you're pretty much trapped. How are you gonna live?
you're trapped. Exactly.
That was much of the system is, if you convert to U.S. currency, I think the number I've heard floated was like 30%.
Mm-hmm.
And you weren't making a lot to begin with. So
Right.
you give up 70%.
Yeah.
They had no upward mobility. There's
Right.
no
The
way
whole idea was
better
to steal
yourself.
it back. That was the whole idea, to claw every nickel that they gave you back and make you work again.
I'm paraphrasing, but one of the co-operators, we've got his quote there on the front as you start through our exhibit. It says, we're not running a Christian Endeavor camp. We're here to make money.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. We're here to make money. And that's...
Yeah. So do you have any, like the Paint Creek and Cabin Creek photos?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to kind of give everybody an idea
this
of
is a
exactly
really
what we're
interesting
talking
piece.
about.
This is a hand-drawn map by G. Ray Hudnall back in 1975. And a really cool story about this map is one of our visitors last year was visiting Paint Creek and Cabin Creek before we made it down to the museum. And he's outside taking pictures. And this fella comes out on his porch and he's talking to him. And eventually, after they converse for a while, he brings him the original copy of this map.
Really?
So we've got a little higher quality scan. This came from a totally different source, but it's interesting how all those connections kind of come full circle a lot here at the museum.
It is.
Now, one of the most egregious examples we have of some of the things that the miners and their families were put through was the Bull Moose Special.
Yes.
So, and this was an armored train with a gun mounted to it, and it drove through the Holly Grove tent camp, shot up the whole camp. Now, luckily for the miners and their families, I guess it was very hard to maneuver that big gun on top of the train, so he couldn't get the angle he would have needed to shoot into the camp effectively. There was one person killed and a few others injured, but it could have been so much worse, but it just...
Right. Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier. That
there's an element of terror to all of it, too. Especially when you, in Paint Creek and Cabin Creek, when you see a lot of the patterns unfold, martial law and the companies and the government working together.
Yeah.
They were trying to terrify these people into submission.
Terrorize
as much
them.
And that terrorizing them, really, in my opinion, that's what caused so much of the
Made 'em
violence
mad.
to escalate.
That's what made them mad.
Because when you're not getting paid, you can't leave, and then all of a sudden these people there's threats of being shot at, or not even just threats. They actually go through and...
Yeah. Well, like we were talking outside earlier, what's his name again? The photographer, I forget his name. Ian, that's right. We were talking earlier over at we were sitting at the inn. The way they did this, see, they waited, like we were explaining earlier. So like you're one of these coal miners, right? Now you've been through this process, the whole script, all this stuff. You've been through this process, right? Now you have no prospects of getting a job. I own the coal mine, I own all the other businesses in town, all this kind of stuff. You've only got one option as far as feeding your family. You can either go over here in the river and catch a fish, or you can go up here in the hills and get a squirrel, a rabbit, something like that. If you didn't do one of those two things, there would be no food for your children today. Your kid's not going to eat. They waited until these guys were gone to run the train through, but more importantly, they did it when your gun was gone, so you ain't going to be shooting back. That's some underhanded stuff, ain't it?
It for sure is. It's just the way so much of it unfolds. I think it's tied to a lot of even the attitudes of people today, and You know, a lot of us locals are sort of distrustful of things at times, and there's a
Government.
There's a direct line to sort of the way people were treated and their families were treated, and a lot of the things you were promised when you showed up here versus the
Exactly.
reality of it.
Well, the script, they didn't tell you about that script stuff till you got here.
Yeah, if you want to check out some of our script collection here.
You know, the way they do this, we're going to pay you, you know, whatever X amount, you know, to work with us. We're going to give you this amount of money, whatever the X amount. And then when you got here and payday rolled around, then you found out that we're not going to pay you in like money. We're going to give you this stuff, and it's good in my store and nowhere else. And by the way, my store is like really expensive.
Yep, you paid a premium. I mean, one of the other first things you have to do, like if you arrive on train and you're promised this really good job in this area, the first thing you have to do is go to the company store and go in debt. Because they're not going to give you your tools.
Exactly.
You got to go in debt and buy tools from their store at a premium price.
You took a job, you're in debt now. You're up to your eyeballs. Not to mention a lot
of the other services that they're going to automatically deduct from your pay.
Yeah, smithing, doctor, hospital burial fund, insurance, feed, hauling, mine checks, lights. Wow, board.
Now, something that makes Matewan in particular a lot different, and the reason why you have a shootout here in Matewan and you don't have that play out anywhere else, is because Matewan is not a coal camp. Matewan here on the river, it had been sort of a town with a lot of timber. You have some of your Hatfield-McCoy history there. Hatfield's owning a lot of what is Matewan. So you end up having a chief of police, you got a mayor, you got a city government that sets up shop. Versus, you know, if you go over, like, especially into like Kanawha County, Fayette County, the dots you see here, these are all coal camps. And then in Matewan, it's a little circle.
Right, a little sporadic.
Yeah, you can kind of see the difference in the symbols. So this one's actually a city. Williamson is actually a city. But a lot of these places are coal camps.
Yeah, middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and if you're a coal camp, you don't have anybody to represent you. If you're out on the street and the coal company decides that they don't want you assembling in the street,
yeah, exactly,
run you out of there.
Exactly. I think your wife's hot, and if you say anything about it, you're fired.
That was pretty much the reality of it.
It's wild, man.
But Stone Mountain Camp was inside of Matewan city limits, so that's where you end up with this sort of a showdown between the local government and Sid Hatfield, chief of police, and then your Mayor Cabell Testerman. When the Baldwin Felts, they call themselves detectives,
right?
But they're, for all intents and purposes, they're what we would think of today as like paid security.
Is it Albert?
Lee and Albert, I believe.
Okay.
Make sure this is actually Lee and Albert over here. This actually may not be Lee and Albert. It may just be some agents from Lee and Albert are the two who are sort of in the direct conflict with Sid. You're in the back of Chambers Hardware, and Sid, the mayor, and Lee and Albert are kind of all talking it out, and they're directly related to the Felts part of that organization.
Right.
And that's why you end up with sort of this back and forth also. You know, a year after the shootout here in Matewan, a little over a year, you end up with Baldwin Felts agents ambushing Sid Hatfield and his buddy Ed when they go down to Welch.
Right.
And they're murdered there on the courthouse steps.
Yeah. We did a video right in the exact spot.
And, you know, they claim self-defense, and they're found not guilty, even though, you know, it's a whole group of armed security versus 2,000 wives.
I'm going to attack you on the courthouse steps and gun you down, and then I'm going to claim self-defense.
That was the reality back then. And then everybody sort of was trying to move their cases where they thought they could get the best outcome. Instead of a fair outcome, it's just like, well, we've got it stacked over here. Let's try to get it moved.
Yeah, we've got the jury is on our side. You're right. But all it took was a bunch of crazy hillbillies, and the whole world changed, didn't it?
It sure did.
It's an amazing story. The whole mine wars, the whole mine wars era is just a really amazing story that gets really overlooked in a lot of American history. But the significance of it is just mind-boggling that it's not taught in schools. This is real American history. This should be taught. Every kid in America should know the story of the Matewan massacre.
We're doing our absolute best on that. If you have any viewers out there who are teachers, and we've hired an education coordinator on here at the museum, we've got a new program called Teaching Trunks. So if you go check out our website, wvminewars.org, you can find info about that. We've got 3 trunks that we'll ship out to you. Got lesson plans ready. Everything you'd need to teach about the mine wars in your class.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
That's been a big project of ours for the last about a year.
Did you hear that, teachers? There you go.
If you'd like to connect with us and teach this to your classes, get a hold of us.
That would be some amazing stuff to teach.
And here's our example of a canvas tent similar to what they would have lived in.
I'm sure that was warm in the winter too.
They built all different size structures. They weren't this size, but they were, this sort of material.
Canvas, right? Yeah.
And I don't think I would want to spend a West Virginia winter.
No.
Sometimes even in the spring,
Summer.
we experience all four
Imagine
seasons.
the summers, how hot and how cold that would be in the winter. Trying to live in that,
But there were major tent camps at North Matewan. You can still see a lot of the camp houses as you pass through there. But there was one out in North Matewan, and then Lick Creek, which is if you take the old road, Route 49, that runs on the West Virginia side back from Matewan to Williamson. Just before you get back into Williamson there you'll run into Lick Creek, and you really wouldn't know that there's a lot there. But like I said, we have a researcher working on that, Ethan Carnes. He's been with us for about a year now, but we'll be losing him in September. He'll be moving on. But we're hoping to eventually expand our monument trail too, to mark some of these local sites.
That's a good idea.
Our
That is
first
a really good
priority is
idea.
we're coming down sort of on the marching route from Blair Mountain back into Matewan, or back into Logan County. But eventually there's some significant sites here in Mingo too we'd love to mark out. Like Lick Creek is one that we'd love to have some markers out there, and even maybe here in town, like some signage out at North Matewan too.
You mind if I ask how old you are, Thomas?
Yeah, I'm 34. Well,
Really?
I'm sorry, 35 as of May.
You know a lot of stuff, man, for a young dude.
I'm local. Believe it or not, I was a music teacher here in Mingo County for about 9 years. So, hello out there if my band students are watching.
Yeah.
I was band director at Birch and Tug Valley both for a little while, and I honestly did not know a lot about this before I started, and I've had to do a lot of reading to catch up, and then...
Well, it's all so convoluted. All right, sorry, guys. Had to swap out batteries. I thought it said 12%, but it meant 0. When it said 12, it meant 0. But anyway. Thank you, Thomas. Very much appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your busy day to show our viewers around a little bit. We very much appreciate you.
Yeah,
and what I was saying, if anybody would like to chip in and help out with the museum, maybe make a donation, what was the...
You can find all of our programming. If you want to donate, become a member. If you want to just learn more about the Mine Wars, at wvminewars.org.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate you, Thomas. Y'all have a good day. Appreciate y'all watching, and we will see you guys next time on the next edition. Leo out.